So the Dallas Stars pulled off another huge victory last night, and as you can see, I'm obviously wearing the Stars jersey because for the first time in a long time, I actually think that they could be onto something and that this could be a winning team. But today there is so much football news that we have to get into. A lot of big recruiting news will be coming in the video right after this one, so be sure to stick around for that because we have a lot to break down and it's going to be a lot of fun. Not only new commitments, but we're going to be taking a look at the top 15 teams in the country, piling on one team, and then kind of talking about where moves can be made. But for right now, there is a huge opt-out that will, in fact, change the trajectory of one team this season, and we have to get into it. But before we do, as always, y'all, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. We are a new sports content channel that does everything from football content, high school, college, and NFL to basketball. You name the sport, we're probably talking about it, and we love to have a good time. We'd love to have you along with us. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification, and as always, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up and drop a comment down below, and let's talk about this opt-out situation because it is huge news. So, over the week, last week, there were rumblings on Twitter and everything about a huge player in the SEC opting out. And it just kept being talked about and talked about and talked about. And I saw so many high-profile names being thrown out there. I mean, at one point, I saw Alabama's freshman quarterback, Bryce Young, his name being put out there. He wasn't at scrimmage on Saturday. He has been missing from a few practices, and there's very limited information as to why. And so at first, people were thinking that that could be the opt-out. But in fact, it might be bigger than that. Because at least Alabama has an heir apparent to the quarterback position, and somebody who has experience and who is projected to win the starting job anyways. So, regardless, it wasn't Bryce Young, and it wasn't anybody on the Alabama Crimson Tide roster. And in fact, this opt-out could turn the Bayou Bengals into the Puddle Kittens, because Jamar Chase, unquestionable #1 wide receiver coming into this draft, has opted out of the 2020 season. Now, this is huge because, like I said, the implications this carries for LSU are massive. LSU is already down a ton of talent from last year's team, and there are already a ton of question marks around LSU. LSU fans, I know you don't like hearing it. I see you on Twitter saying how the world is fine. It's not going to be okay. Like, you could still be a great team. You're LSU, and I think that's where some fans kind of get taken aback when people are like, oh, well, you're not going to be that good. Not going to be that good is a relative term to the team in which it is being applied to, right? Like, not being that good for Texas Tech is very different than not being that good for Ohio State. If Ohio State drops 2 at max 3 games, that's a bad season for them. If Texas Tech comes out of the Big 12 only losing 2 to 3 games, that's a great season for them. So, not very good is a relative term depending on the team it is applied to, and LSU, y'all fit more under the boat of a Ohio State expectation than you do a Texas Tech expectation. Meaning a not very good season for y'all while still could have a lot of losses because you're in the SEC. That doesn't mean you're a bad team. I talked about A&M last year. A&M had a bunch of losses last year. A&M was a very good team at the end of the year, and the rankings will never show it because they had the toughest college schedule I've seen in a long time. And the SEC is absolutely back now. People were saying a few years ago that it's changed and that it's not as good, but that's not true. The SEC now is as deep as it's ever been. So LSU has their #1 target opting out of this season. Well, LSU fans, I'll tell you where it's a big deal and where it's not a big deal. Because like I said, we already have to talk about some of the components of your team changing. It's a big deal in the sense that your best player on offense is gone. Your best player on offense is gone. And maybe your best player, right? Like, that depends on Stingley, because Stingley is arguably the best player on the team. He's definitely the best defensive player on the team. But Jamar Chase is so supremely talented. Jamar Chase could probably be wide receiver 1 at any university in the nation, And yes, I'm including Alabama. Like, he could go in there and give Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle a real hard time. The kid is phenomenal. He projects to be a top 10 kind of pick in the NFL draft. So losing that obviously hurts. Now, here's where it's not that bad, LSU fans. Y'all are a bit like Alabama in the sense that Alabama lost 2 first-round receivers, right? And usually when a team loses 2 first-round receivers on the same team, odds are their receiving core is going to be heavily depleted. That's not the case at Alabama. If anything, Alabama's receiving core is still just as deep. I mean, right now you still have Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, John Mechie out there just looking amazing, Slade Bolden out there looking amazing, and then apparently there are 2 true freshmen on campus for Alabama that cannot stop making plays, one coming on later, but the other one, Javon Baker, has been being jawed about from day one he stepped on campus, and he looks to be a huge big-time playmaker year one. So that's kind of the benefit, LSU, is you do have bodies on the back end to supplement a Jamar Chase lost. None of them are Jamar Chase, though. Make no mistake about it. Not one receiver on that team is Jamar Chase. It's just like as for Alabama, as great as Devontae Smith and all them are. There's no Jerry Jeudy. There's no Julio. There's no Amari, right? Like, they're all fantastic, but they're not that guy. They don't have to be, right? Like, Devontae Smith needs to be Devontae Smith, and LSU receivers, as long as y'all go out there and be yourselves, do what got you to LSU, you're going to be just fine. But expect a dip in production, LSU offense. Absolutely expect a dip in production. Don't get it twisted. You're in the SEC, the toughest conference in all of football, and the best player on your team is gone. This isn't last season where you have Joe Brady able to scheme in order to help you get guys open and in order to get your offense out of the Stone Ages. Joe Brady's gone. And I know Coach O says that Esminger is the one who called 80% of the plays, but only a fool would believe that because Esminger has been there. So why didn't any of his plays work ever before? How come his offense always looked like it came out of a kindergartner's color book before? Right? It was the most stagnant, predictable offense I've ever seen. It was bad. And now you hire Scott Linehan, who got fired from the Cowboys because every NFL pundit, even NFL players, kept saying his offensive system is horrendous. It is so predictable. It is so basic that Luke Kuechly was able to guess plays against the Cowboys because he's like, it's Scott Linehan. He's not doing anything. He can't do anything. So LSU fans, that's where you're in a bind. You don't have Joe Brady anymore, and Joe Brady was the catalyst. Him mixed with Joe Burrow, I hate to break this to you, was the catalyst. You don't have that anymore, either of them. You have a equally uncreative play caller as you've always had. So now you have 2 things of uncreativity. You have Coach O trying to put away allegations, and that still needs to be investigated, truthfully, as all levels, Les Miles included. I'm not abstaining him from this, but that needs to be investigated. And now you lose Jamar Chase. LSU, it is not a good offseason for you. Because losing Jamar Chase, even if everything else was to remain the same, you're still in a very much weakened position without Jamar Chase. But when you take out all of those other components, man, you could be in some real trouble, LSU fans. Now, once again, it's a relative term. I think y'all might drop 3 games. And that's me being a little bit mean, for lack of a better word, right? Like, LSU fans, you're going to be just fine, but understand this year, I've seen so many LSU fans on Twitter, they got so mad when anybody suggested that it was Jamar Chase. And I mean, they were seething on like Friday and Saturday when the rumors that it was Jamar Chase. I mean, they were calling everybody who tweeted it an idiot this, idiot that. I mean, it was incredible how mad they got at people just saying, hey, it could be this guy. And then the second he opted out, none of them wanted to talk about how they were calling people idiots. None of them wanted to say anything except, we'll be fine. Doesn't matter. We don't need him. No, you're going to hurt. You don't have Joe Brady back there. You don't have Joe Burrow back there. And you have 2 very, very uncreative play callers. Now without your best target on your team. So LSU fans, that really hurts. That's going to do it for this video, but we are going to be talking more about you because as bad as your start to this season has been, you have had a phenomenal start to recruiting, and we have to get into that because y'all know I love the recruiting news. But as always, y'all, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like down below, drop a comment. Let's talk about this Jamar Chase situation. I love debating sports, so drop a comment down below. Let's get into it. Let's have a good time. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, we'll see you next time. See ya.